it's required of me to know how to do white skin. You know, it's not always required for my white counterparts to know how to do black skin.
You can kind of tell the real from the fake.
Oftentimes I might be the only one in the room or the only one at the table.
Okay, you really love my idea that you stole it and took it.
I don't just want to sit at the table. I'm gonna create my own table.
I think the great thing about creating your own business is that I can choose that.
So in the documentary that Misa was featured in, from the remix Hip Hop and Fashion, I want to quote Kirby Jean Raymond, my Haitian peer, our Haitian brother. He said, black culture, black fashion, black bodies is always cool as long as it's not on black people. That's the notion that we've been disrupting. So I want to get into that conversation. Let's start talking about inclusivity and diversity and what that looks like for black people, black women, black men in these spaces. Are you even in the room? Are you busting it down? What are you doing to get into that room?
I will say this. I'm very careful when I say the word grateful because I never want to. I think sometimes people of color, especially black people, can get in a habit of being grateful for things that should just be like automatically owed to you, like as a human being. Yeah. So I don't like to say the word grateful, but I am privileged in the fact, as opposed to probably some of my other like beauty editor, beauty director peers who are also black women at other outlets, I'm privileged in the fact that I can raise certain conversations at BuzzFeed and that I don't necessarily think I would be able to raise if I was at other outlets. But nowhere is perfect, obviously, especially companies that are majority white. And so what I try to do is like amplify my blackness in every way that I possibly can. So whether that's like me going to work in an afro or me doing a video in a 40-inch wig inspired by Nicki Minaj, like whatever that is, like whatever that looks like for me and whatever, you know, that is for me, because oftentimes I might be the only one in the room or the only one at the table. And so I kind of look at it as like, oh, I'm making up for everybody else who wasn't here, and then I'm also having those conversations as well. And I think one thing for me, like at BuzzFeed, that I was very intentional about when I first started was just like normalizing the way that we would cover things. So for instance, I always say, in like some of your more traditional media outlets or fashion magazines or beauty magazines, you don't ever open the book and they say, oh, we're about to show you 400 pages of size 2 blonde girls, and that's just what it is. They just do that, and then we interpret that as the norm. So at BuzzFeed, one of the things that I tried to do was just normalize inclusivity and normalize diversity. And for example, one of the stories that I did was like, we went to Afropunk, I think maybe in 2016 or 2017, I can't remember. And so I just had one of the photographers go with me and take a bunch of pictures of like everyday beautiful black people, all different complexions, all different hair textures, body sizes. And then I went into work that Monday and made a list, and it was like 40 photos of the world's most beautiful people. Because we see those lists come out every year, like, you know, the world's most beautiful person or the world's most beautiful people. And it's always like, for the most part, straight, white, skinny celebrities. And so I was like, well, we're gonna shake it up this year, and this is what we are saying are 40, you know, of the world's most beautiful people, and just to try to normalize that. And I remember I got a little backlash from that in the comments, and people writing me and saying like, you should have said that it was like a black post or it was a black story. And I'm like, why? Because the other magazine across the street didn't tell you that in their book when they pick all white models, you know, and designers don't tell you that when they send all white models down the runway. So why do I have to put that disclaimer? And so for me, it's just been very important to normalize things without putting a disclaimer sometimes, without saying like, you know, 40 photos of the best afros or 40 photos of the whatever most beautiful black people. It's like, no, this is what I'm saying is like the most beautiful people, period. Because if I can normalize it, then you'll start to look at it as the standard just at the same way that you look at, you know, white beauty or whatever as the standard. So, yeah, that's just kind of been the way, you know, my approach to things. Before, when I was on editorial, now I'm more with like partnerships and sales. But yeah, I hope, does that answer?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
AJ, you actually said something to me on our one-on-one, and you said you became a brand before inclusive was a
Yeah.
word, and you said we've been inclusive.
I think that's
They just catching on.
because it's been within it's within the DNA of myself. I mean, I think it's just in the DNA of Black people. Like, we've always had to adapt to everyone else's thing. You know what I mean? And even though we were the ones who are trend setting, or we're the ones who are you know, kind of creating the narrative, we don't always get the credit for it, right? But with AJ Crimson Beauty, when I did that, when I started it, I knew intentionally what and who I wanted to talk to. You know, I knew what she looked like. She was a Black woman. She was, you know, well-to-do. You know what I mean? She loved to travel. She does all these things that, you know, I guess some people feel like are out of touch or out of reach. But I was like, no, I know Black girls like this. You know, and I want her to see herself in this opportunity. The other thing to that is, as a makeup artist, it is required of me since I started. So when starting in fashion, you know, under people like Pat McGrath, it's required of me to know how to do white skin. You know, it's not always required for my white counterparts to know how to do Black skin.
A lot of these brands or companies are monetizing off of these Black experiences in spaces that we don't even get the credit for, or we're not even given the opportunity to have, you know, the conversation of, hey, let me tell you about my brand.
Right.
What does that look like? And anybody could take this question. Have you guys been in spaces where you literally have seen something that you created? And I feel like, Misa, you might could speak to this. Listen, something that you literally created and you saw it on a runway.
Oh, yeah.
And you didn't get the credit. What did that feel like? What did that do to your esteem? What did that do for your brand?
For me, I can tell you one specific story. I went to Italy for a fashion show, and I had on a custom multicolored mink shorts and like a halter top. I designed it myself. I went, and I saw my same look next year in the show. And that's just one time.
Right.
But how does it feel? First, it feels like, wow, okay, you really love my idea, that you stole it and took it and put it into your show or your collection. However, why wouldn't you include me in that process? Or
Right.
someone that looks like me in that process? You
Yes.
can't just take from me and act like I don't exist, the person, the origin, the source of your inspiration. And so I would feel like there would not ever be a place for me there. Like, can I style that runway fashion show? Would you let me do a campaign?
Yeah.
No, not at that time. However, things are changing.
Yes.
They are. And now that can happen, and now it does happen, you know, more and more, and I think it's gonna get better. But it felt bad. At first it feels like, oh,
Flattered.
you loved it, okay. But
It's
then the
confusing.
reality sets in like, but you X'd me out of the whole opportunity.
To not even get the credit is the part that's really offensive, right?
Yes.
You know, at the very least, they're gonna be like inspired by Misa Hylton.
Yes.
But to not even get that is a jab. You know what I'm saying? So I
it
can
is.
only imagine what was this, 25 years of your career at this
Yeah.
point? How continuous that has been over and over for you, and the fact that you're still going and creating opportunities for other Black women. We can get into the conversation of how that could have taken you back the first time it happened. I'm getting literally chills talking about it to you right now, because you could have stopped. That could have really took you out at the kneecaps. You could have been like, I'm done with this. But the fact that you continued on, and we see you everywhere. We see you everywhere. Today, 2020, we see it. So kudos to you for continuing to go on, because that is not, that's
And
not
you know,
easy.
also think about it. I started so young that my focus was creating. I just wanted to create.
And I think that's where the line is very thin when it comes to appreciation versus appropriation. And that's like the comment that you had where, they're like, oh, you got the Kim Kardashian braids. And you're like, child, these are cornrows. We've been rocking them since God knows when.
HR told me that.
Oh.
Somebody from HR.
And see, no,
Like, all
keep it
right.
real. That's how you would feel, just to imagine. So I don't know if you want to anybody wants to briefly just talk about appreciation versus appropriation and what that looks like in each of your individual spaces.
Oh my God. I feel like even at Hearst now, with everything that's like going on, with, you know, George Floyd's passing, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, it was as if like the whole world woke up and Black people was like, well, we're not new to this.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it was like really just, I had coworkers like coming in and just like saying comments like, hey, are you like, you're okay? Or just like saying, oh yeah, I like this music too, just to like be down now. You know what I mean? It was like this like weird thing where it's kind of confusing where the genuineness comes from. So that's like really like what I'm struggling with at work now. But you could kind of tell the real from the fake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, no, you just got these braids because it's a trend right now,
Right,
and it's
right.
not something that that you know that like that's your style.
I think the cool part about what's happening right now is we have social media to amplify our voices.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's a little harder for people to appropriate our culture and our ideas and the things that we create, you know, without getting the ultimate backlash from it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what has been missing, whether it's been missing in music, you know, when pop music was created off the backs of Black, you know, inspiration, when, you know, from Dapper Dan, you know what I mean, to, you know, to even just the beauty industry today. You know, I won't say that I'm the first one to come up with these colors, you know, that you see, but at the same time, I felt like in the first 3 years of AJ Crimson Beauty, we were really pushing hard for the deeper skinned Black girl to be the center of the conversation first.
Yes.
It's a Black woman first business because she has the money to support it. So why shouldn't this be her brand? You know what I mean? Like she's giving to everything else, you know, but then to see, you know, white companies come along and like Misa said, instead of partnering with me to say, hey, like, you know what, you're an authentic voice, you know, that speaks directly to this specific audience, you know, why don't you come along with us and we will help build that. And we can all make money together, you know, because it's ultimately about a money game, right?
Yes.
Like for corporations. Yeah. So instead of fabricating this idea of like what culture is and what we should be and what you should be buying into from a marketing perspective, from the eyes of people that don't look anything like you, you know, and maybe you may be the secretary or the intern coming in the room, but you're not at the corporate level making the decision. Like there's no way that you can tell me that a 60-year-old white woman could ever be the authority on beauty and fashion for anything for a Black woman. It just doesn't happen like that. So, come on, right? I mean, you know, so I think that what we've seen with social media is that it's given us a voice. It's given us that opportunity to speak louder and to push that conversation forward. I mean, sitting in quarantine, you know, and watching how everything just shut down and it brought people to the carpet.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like with Put Up or Shut Up that Sharon from Oma Beauty did, and making those companies say and tell us exactly, be transparent.
Yes.
You know, if you're about diversity, show us how diverse you really are. You know what I mean? And only having like, you know, one Black girl, you know, in the room or a mixed race girl. No, you know what I mean?
And that one person being in diversity and inclusion.
Exactly, being diversity and inclusion. It's like, okay, well, can she really relate?
Right.
You know what I mean? So, or having, you know, it's just got to be more authentic.
Yes.
You got to get into, you know, getting more people around the table that actually know the experience, that can speak to the experience. If you're not doing that, then you're not doing your part. You know?
Yeah.
And there's something that I want to speak to personally that you said about having a darker skinned woman just in the forefront of whatever campaign.
Yeah.
When I went to Ghana, that is probably the very first time in my entire life that I actually felt seen and beautiful. Every single billboard was a Black woman
South
or a
Africa.
Black man. And
Same thing.
Yeah, and I actually didn't even notice. My boyfriend, who's a photographer, noticed. He said, do you realize that every poster up here is Black, right? Yeah. And I didn't even know. I had to take that in myself and be like, oh, this is what it would look like to see me in these beauty spaces and fashion spaces, and be like, okay, so then I am as beautiful as I thought I was. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So I kind of want to speak to that. And Samantha, I know this is very important to you in the digital spaces. And AJ, you could probably speak to this after her. In digital spaces and what your product looks like in marketing, and having darker skinned women and black women, black men, or whomever on your marketing, what does that look like? How did you get there? Was that something that you always knew?
Well, I'm gonna just peel it back a little bit to what AJ said. As far as like social media, it's hurtful and it's also like it's harmful but also helpful. And like with me as a designer, I used to put out a lot of content online on my page, and then it got to the point where I started seeing other companies stealing my ideas.
That's insane.
So I was like, you know what? Nah, sis, you're not gonna keep putting out your, pieces. Like one of the dresses that I did probably like 3 years ago, it was like one of my best-selling dresses, and Fashion Nova put it on their website.
Are you kidding?
No.
Wow.
Cut the head off.
For that. Aren't they known for that?
That's what I'm about to get on. So I looked up their whole model and like how they go after and how they like make their pieces. They're on our pages. They have a team that comes on our pages, looks up what we're doing, and then reproduces it within 24 hours. And that goes to, we don't have the funding to make something within 24 hours. Like, that's insane. And we don't have the team as well. So while we're over here trying to build that, they already have that. So it's like, this is stolen. Now they're selling for half the price because they're getting it done in China or wherever they are. And you're just like, I'm here in my studio in New York, one of the most expensive cities to live in and create out of. And you're just trying to figure out, all right, so what's next? What am I gonna do next? And you're so afraid to put anything out.
Yeah.
So that's why I've like scaled back with putting things out until I know that I have the marketing behind it, until that I know I have the money and everything, the rollout to release certain pieces. And yeah, naturally, just for me, I want to see myself reflected in whatever it is that I'm buying. So if it's a woman that's thicker, she could be slim, it doesn't matter. It's just about different skin tones. It's about you seeing yourself in whatever it is, makeup, clothing, just entertainment all over. Like how you said when you went to Ghana, you didn't even realize it. But here, we're seeing a billboard and it has like tall, blonde, skinny woman. I can't relate to that. So that's been a thing for me, is to make it more relatable. Even like women that are Muslim, like I want to start using that more as well, because they should be showcased as well.
Absolutely.
And I see Nike started doing that, which I was happy about.
Yep.
But I don't want them to just be doing it because of money, or that's the popular trend right now. I'm big about, I don't just want to sit at the table. I'm gonna create my own table.
Okay.
I'm over it. Like, we're at a point now where it's like, if you don't understand by now what's going on, I don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Just a couple of days ago, my cousin, I took her out for her birthday, and we went to this restaurant. We were like the only black girls there. We waited an hour for our table just to go upstairs to be like, oh, well, if you're not getting bottle service, you can't.
Oh.
Excuse me? I said I would have gotten bottle service, but at this point, I'm just gonna leave. So we should just stop giving our money and our time to places and companies that don't treat us right.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Yeah. Dominique and AJ, you both make it very apparent. Dark-skinned women are a part of your brand, and you want them to be able to see themselves in that. So if you guys want to expound on that a little bit, please feel free.
I mean, I love it. My mom is a beautiful dark-skinned woman, so I grew up everyone thinking that she was lovely, and so I looked like her, so I'm like, I'm lovely too. And so, for me, I didn't have that issue of, thinking that I wasn't, less than or that I wasn't beautiful. So I'm thankful to have a mother and father and community who was super supportive of that.
Yeah.
And so for me to put women who look like me on my brand is natural. That's the natural progression. And I think the great thing about creating your own business is that I can choose that. I choose who I work with. Yeah. I choose my vendors. All of my staff are, women of color, you know what I mean? And so I think that is the great part, that I'm so insulated in a world of like awesome black women that, I forget that that other people exist sometimes. Like, it's just us. And so it's a wonderful, really wonderful world to be in. So yeah.
I think I want to be able to, we're going to need a part 2 of this brunch, ladies, because I think there's a deeper conversation within colorism within just the Black community, and we can get there, child, but I want to, it's a whole conversation. Part 2 of the brunch. And that's important. You said that, you were able to see your mom and yourself, and someone told your mom she was beautiful.
Everyone told my mom she was beautiful.
Right.
Everybody. So I'm like, this is a natural progression.
And thankfully, that was the case in your instance, that dark black skin was beautiful. In some other little girl's home, that might not have been the case. So thankfully, that was the case for you, because now you're blessing dark-skinned women as well, and being able to see themselves. So, but with that said, I want to jump into the conversation of entrepreneurship.